Now we're in one of the newest parts of our research farm, and this is a joint effort between Stanislaus Farm Supply and the University of California at Davis and the Cooperative Extension. Now I'm here with Dan Putnam from UC Davis, the alfalfa specialist for the Extension Agency. Dan, can you expand a little bit on what this plot is all about?
Sure, Joey. Behind us here we have 52 varieties that are planted to compare their yields and other characteristics here on the sandy soils of Stan Farm Supply, and we're very happy to cooperate with the company here to test these independently. We coded these varieties so that only we know the identity of the varieties so that we can report them independently to the public.
Okay. Hey Dan, what are some things that growers maybe need to consider when they're doing selection for an alfalfa variety?
Well, the first thing that we would recommend is to look at yields. Yields are probably economically year in and year out the most important thing to look at. So we would recommend the top third of the trial would be a high yielding group that we would look for. Second thing we would look for is pest resistance characteristics, and many of these varieties have both Phytophthora, aphid, insect, as well as disease resistance, and so having a variety with good package of insect and pest resistance is very, very important. So fall dormancy of the alfalfa variety is the ability of the variety to grow in the fall and the winter of the year. It's the winter activity of that variety. So it's generally indicated by the height of the plant in the late part of the year. So this is a taller plant. You can see how tall it is compared with this one here. There's a lot of differences between these two different varieties. One is this one is going to be higher yielding than this one here, generally speaking, at the same cutting schedule. The other difference you see here, which I'm not sure if you can tell, but the leafiness of this variety is much greater than the leafiness of this variety. That is, the percentage leaves in the hay is greater here than it is here. The third thing is you can see an individual stem, and Joey, if you can hold this a second for me, the individual stems here are quite a bit different. So, for example, this stem here is very thick and this one's very thin. This one's likely to be much more lignified than this one here. This one is probably going to be a very highly palatable line. This one's going to probably have a lower quality at the same cutting schedule when they're harvested at the same time. But this one will be higher yielding. So there's going to be a significant question for growers is whether or not they want higher yields or higher quality or somewhere in between. And so that's part of the reason you do these tests, to see where growers want to be with their yield quality trade-off with alfalfa hay.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Now, of course, different parts of the state will determine maybe what dormancy
Correct.
they use.
Right, and some, like for example, on fields that are perhaps flooded, for example, prone to flooding, we would actually recommend these more dormant lines, or if a grower really emphasizes quality on their ranch, they really would rather have a little bit better quality, and they're willing to give up some of the yield to achieve that quality, then this is the kind of variety we might recommend for that ranch. But keep in mind that in our tests, we've seen 2 or 3 ton yield penalties from going from these 7 or 8 fall dormancies down to a 3 or 4 fall dormancies. So you have to look at the economics of the situation and whether that really makes sense.
So there's a lot of things a grower has to look
a lot
at
of
today.
Thinking about. The other trait that we would look at here is a pretty new trait. It's called the Roundup Ready trait, and that is a combination of a trait of the seed as well as an herbicide strategy. That is an ability to spray the crop with Roundup safely. And those varieties have been grown for the last 5 years here in California, since 2005. There was a period where there was a legal challenge to them, so they have some characteristics that are both desirable from the standpoint of managing the plants and the crop, but also present different kinds of challenges. If you're marketing to sensitive markets, you have to be kind of careful because some people don't like GMOs, and so there's that issue that some growers will have to deal with. So Roundup Ready we have several Roundup Ready lines that are back here in comparison with conventional lines, so we're testing them side by side here in this trial.
Now, how many trials like this do you have throughout the state?
We have 8 trials throughout the state of California, University of California trials. We have trials up near the Oregon border at Tule Lake. We have trials at Davis here in Modesto. We have trials in Fresno County and the west side on the heavier soils and the east side on the lighter soils. We have some trials up in the high desert in Lancaster and also down in El Centro.
Okay, so you really cover the state.
Try
that
to.
way you can get the most diversity, and you can
Right.
see what works best in certain regions, because there's not a one-size-fit-all.
There's not a one-size-fit-all. If you take some of these lines that do very well in Modesto and bring them up to Tule Lake, they curl up and die. So
Yep.
it's something we have to be careful with. And the fall dormancy groups that we grow in Tule Lake, which is near Oregon, and put them in El Centro, they're pretty miserable looking down there. So we really have to be specific to the region in terms of testing, which is why we're doing some work here with Stand Farm. So.
Okay. Well, I think all the growers will appreciate what UC Davis does and the extension to really get good, unbiased testing of the various commercial varieties and new experimentals that are on the horizon. It'll be for you farmers in the future. So we appreciate the work you do, and let's go look at some other stuff.